everyone, Comic Reviewer here, and this time reviewing on Yakuza 0. Now, as you know, Yakuza 0 is meant to be a prequel into the Yakuza series, as well as the sixth main entry into the Yakuza series, and meant to be a prequel to the original game. Now, keep in mind that it was released for the PS3, in Japan, the PS4, and Microsoft Windows. Now, I do have a bit of a theory why it never got released in the PS3 in Western release. May have been due to the fact that the PS3 was coming to an end, and probably the Western companies just didn't want to market it out too soon as people were getting PS4s. Now, the premise of the game is mainly about Kiryu, who after basically is framed for an accidental murder and is eventually brought in by an estate agent to help cover the empty lot, which is this kind of small empty like area. And at the same time, we basically see Kiryu going through struggle and basically becoming a better person. Now, what's interesting is that you've also got Majima before he adopted his crazy persona, and we see him helping a young blind girl who is connected to the empty lot. And in a way, I have to admit the fighting styles in the game isn't too bad. What's interesting is that you meet a certain mentor and they can teach you a different fighting style. For example, with Kiryu you can do the beast, also with Majima you can do a hip-hop attack, and so on. What's also interesting is that with Yakuza 0, we do see other characters before they become who they are in the Yakuza series, and some cameos as well. I think what makes the game interesting is that there's so much to do in the game. You can pretty much like do bowling, can pretty much like do certain other activities like catfights and also underground fighting rings and that. And in a way, it surprisingly still holds up. I think what makes Yakuza 0 work is that it still keeps to what the game is, but at the same time having a different thing. For example, when you hold on to a weaponry during a fight, and if you press circle for a heat action, you can do a different fight style and basically take down your enemies, throw them out of windows, buildings, and so on. And I think it holds up still well. So at the same time, what's also interesting is that in the remakes, Yakuza, Kiwami 1 and 2, characters that did appear in Yakuza 0 do appear in the new game. And I have to admit, I give the creators full credit, and I can see that, yeah, the Yakuza Kiwami games are mostly meant to be a soft boot, and are basically meant to redo the Yakuza games for a new audience. And I think what actually makes Yakuza 0 work is that it still keeps the same elements that the Yakuza games had. And at the same time, we do get some new business tactics with Kiryu and Majima. For example, with Kiryu, you can do real estate business and build up your fortune. With Majima, you can actually run a hostess club, which I think works pretty well. Now, I have to admit, I do give the game credit because it knows how it wants to do itself. It's basically meant to go back into the 80s, and at the same time, you do see these 80s elements. For example, pages, VHS tapes, Betamaxes, and old 80s elements. And I think it's interesting to see what Japanese culture was like when the late 80s were around. So I think somewhere I think Yakuza 0 left an impact, came down, and gave us something new. So I think it deserves a thumbs up. Still good and still alright. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.